can see my title. Before which I would not go much in like philosophical talk or something. I would talk word to word and try to explain what does it mean actually. So you can see in my first slide what you can see, quality must be built in. It cannot be tested in. We had little discussions अभी थोड़ी देर पहले, right? In first lecture, we were talking about pet technology. If we use pet technology, can we test everything? No, that's not true. But sometimes people say why we cannot test the quality. The reason because everything is not non-destructive. You can check identity. I'm just giving you simple example. You can check identity. You can check assay, right? You can check impurities, their label, genotoxic impurity, etc. But you can't check dissolution for every tablet. So every tablet as we discussed cannot be tested. It's just representative of tested batch. That's why we say quality cannot be tested. Because whatever will be tested, it will be destroyed. It's like simple when we do the car test, right? Safety test, safety rating. And when we do the crash test, you are not going to use that car which was used for crash test, right? You are just using representative based on the rating. So in this context, this statement is true for time being. I am not saying that it's going to be true for eternity. We may find out the way where we can start checking those attributes, yes, without destructing the formulation or any product. But for time being, this statement is true. That's why we give a lot of stress on quality, quality, quality. But do you know, this is just, we are playing with the words. Nothing new here. If you look our old guidelines, everything starts with three words. Safety, efficacy, and quality. Right? And when we talk about these three words, they are there from starting, right? When ICS was there, when Pharmacopoeia and Pharmacopoeia Forum established, they were also talking the same thing, right? Quality. Three things important: safety, efficacy, and everything starts from here only. When we talk about safety, we talk about impurities, toxicity. When we talk about efficacy, we talk about assay, dissolution, disintegration, and we decide our CQV. So just to keep explain this terminology for you guys, you just focus these three terms: safety, efficacy, and quality. I am going to talk about quality, but with respect to safety and efficacy. And you are hearing this word CQV, 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 CQV from last 1.5 hours. So let me kind of disintegrate it. Attributes means something which need to be. Now we are putting additional term quality. How we are going to control. And next is critical. So now what is critical? That's also important. So when we talk about any formulation, any product or anything in pharmaceuticals, only two things: safety and efficacy. What is required for these two is critical. Yes, per regulatory, it is critical. And it's listed from decades or when it started. If you see any monograph, right, you will find these tests only. Identity, appearance, assay, impurity, you will find for all the tablets, right, that substance or whatever it is. So when we say CQA, what is CQA? CQA is listed tests, those are required for particular formulation before giving to the patient. So don't kind of just try to kind of memorize it. It's just very simple. Whatever you are looking over here, it has given the new name, CQA. Okay, it's the same monograph listed test and certain general test like dissolution, content uniformity. We can say dissolution is not very important, but it may be critical. It depends what kind of release your formulation is having. So you cannot disregard any test without assessing it. Anything can be, whatever is listed in the pharmacopoeia, anything can be critical. It depends, right? So once you will do risk assessment, जब आप उसको risk assessment करोगे, identify करोगे, maybe it's very tight limit for right Q85 for resolution. In that case, you will have to consider that as critical. And we do the same thing, right, in our daily life as well. So, hope CQA is clear. Just a listed test in the pharmacopoeia or regulatory bodies which need to be conducted before finalizing or releasing the batch. Okay, maybe critical, non-critical. Earlier it was not very important, but while we are talking about design space, that's also important. Why we are using this critical term when we have to test everything, right? We have to test resolution, we have to test assay, we can simply say quality attributes. Why we are talking using this term critical? Because certain things may not require that much of attention. So it's like rule of 80-20. Sometimes you have to identify what need to be skipped or given the less attention so you can put your more efforts towards the important thing. If there is a degradation product which increases on stability, right? Means it's going close to your specification limit or it is having a toxicity potential, then you will need more stringent control for that particular degradation product. Similarly for dissolution, disintegration sometimes comes into the picture. It may not be critical if you are using the dissolution, just control. Disintegration may not be that important, but there are cases where you can directly go with the disintegration and you can skip the dissolution. And you can convince the regulatory. So everything is product specific and phase specific. But it's the same thing which we are just narrating you guys in different terminology. So nothing different here. And when we talk about regulatory compliance, so you won't believe this slide took 5x more time than making whole presentation for you guys. I spent 2 to 3 hours in making my slide, but getting it approved for external presentation, it took 3 days. Following with different committees. So I would not talk much about this definition, you are knowing, right? We have already discussed about it. And this is just flow. So nothing much to kind of talk about. What I'm going to tell you, like this started 2 decades back, right? In 2005 with the Q8 product development. And after 20 years, we are talking the same things. So, one more thing, there are nothing new, everything is established, just you have to learn how to correlate the things from one aspect to other aspects. So it started from product, now we are talking about analytical procedure development. And one more thing I want to clarify when I am saying procedure means method development, because now ICH has changed the terminology. So if you will go through the ICH document, you will not find method development, method validation, you will find terminology, procedure development, procedure validation. So just naming and nothing else. So how we started and where we reached. So I would not talk about what's there in the slide. I'm going to talk what does it mean really. So when we talk about knowledge space, when we talk about quantified design, how we say knowledge space, design space, control space, right? But two things you need to keep in mind, knowledge and risk assessment. It's a continuous process, it never ends, neither in any technical field nor in your life, right? So you have to be cautious how things are changing around you, that is risk assessment. And how you are making yourself ready to deal with those changes, that is knowledge or building that. Right, so start from what's available there, learn, train yourself, train means development phase. Train yourself to deal with those problems and continue building on that, whatever you are already having. And when you start, building on it, then you will learn there are many things which you could have done in much better way how you have done it. So just know set contributors, consequences, what can happen. You know the consequences, right? If you don't read, what will happen? If you won't give the attention to your basic, what will be the outcome? So just highlighting where different guidelines are applicable in this flow. This slide is talking about complete picture of procedure development or life cycle management starting from product development. So इसको ना मैं I hope everyone is comfortable with my language.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, because mixing the two things is getting a bit complicated for me. So we have already covered about product, right? We were talking about critical quality attributes, but here terminology is different. 10 साल पहले जब मैंने पेपर लिखा था, before that even, then I was using the same terminology. Method development, whatever we were using for the product development. So I was using CQA for method and CQA term was there for product development. But now situation is changed. CQA is mainly to the test, those are there in the monograph and pharmacopoeia. Okay, and we are having different terminology for procedure development. So it says product and process under common terminology, nothing new. And when we come to the testing, right, of any critical quality attribute, then it starts with analytical target profile. What you need to achieve. So two important things here. First thing, when we are talking about analytical target profile, it has nothing to do with your technology. When you are talking about analytical, like if regulatory or we want that our tablets should be having 98% active ingredient, API, right? How you are measuring it doesn't matter. बस 98% होना चाहिए. कैसे होता है, आप कैसे दिखाते हो, उससे कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. But what technique you select, that decide your procedure complexity and critical attribute for procedure. Attribute term will be there. Whatever need to be controlled is attribute. When we were talking about product, it was quality. I am using the same term here, procedure. Analytical procedure. So I will be saying analytical procedure attribute. And they keep changing. Consider I have to do the assay. I can do it using NMR. Okay. I can do it using FTIR, Raman, and different means non-destructive technique. Different criteria will be there for the method validation. I would not need solution stability if I am going with non-destructive technique. And that is not critical, right? But if I am using the HPLC for assay, it may be critical. Analytical procedure attribute. Resolution may be critical when I am talking about HPLC. Because in HPLC you need to be selective, or I should be saying specific. If some additional people interfere with your analyte, then you will end up in wrong value. But if you are using NMR, right, you just make solution and you pick one of the signal, other signal won't be interfering, and specificity will not be that much important when you are using NMR. So it's case to case basis. That's why ATP talks what is required for regulatories. How you are doing, it's up to us. So when we define ATP, we should be talking about general conditions like criteria requirement, which says it should be accurate, it should be precise. Like यदि आपने कुछ validation parameters पढ़े हो तो उसमें होता है it start from specificities, specificity, selectivity, accuracy, precision, right linearity, range, LOQ, LOD, etc. Each parameter is having its own importance, right? Everything is not applicable for all the tests. If you are doing a simple 100% say content, you don't need to bother about LOQ. Okay, so it's a technique specific, nothing to do with your ATP. So first you will have ATP, then you have to decide technology. What will be your best suitable technology? Then do the risk assessment. And after that, you can start identifying your parameter. Then once you develop the method, your control strategy, and when we select the technology, so this portion is mainly related to our analytical or procedure development. Then continuous changes, improvement, etc. is just a pictorial representation. So I'm not going to go deep in that. Just I will give you very brief glimpse of how procedure or target works or procedure development works. So just I'm talking about terminology. So analytical procedure attribute, yes, critical quality attribute. There we were talking about critical quality attribute and material attribute. Here we are talking about performance characteristic. Like performance characteristic, nothing, just listed validation parameter. Just giving different naming, right? Like we are giving Gen etc., alpha, beta. It's the same thing. So nothing new, all parameters, everything, how you are presenting, that's only making the difference. One more thing, one concept means people do think when we talk about quality by design. Do you guys think it's necessary to use the design of experiment for quality by design? Sometimes people say yes, it's important to use.
I think there is a little bit confusion for the chemistry students that whether this quality by design is linked to their chemistry or not. Means, see, analytical process is there. So I think it must be essential for their benefit also. The chemistry students. I am from chemistry students for analytical development.
So that's what I am trying to highlight. See, quality is important everywhere. Either it's process, either it's a product or whatever, or an instrument method, or it's a simple chemical reaction, right? If we are talking about chemical reactions, we may also establish the different range. Reactant percentage or their millimolarity to the temperature, to the reaction time, everything we can customize there. And you can identify the best conditions suitable for your yield in the chemistry. Just how you use it, that matters. So MODR, method of river design reason. Yes, I was telling, is DOE required or OFT means one factor at a time. It's not necessary to use design of experiment. If you can find out different way, or you can recall, or you can just categorize your experiment, or can get the information from those random experiments, reasonable information from random experiments, that is also absolutely fine. What important is, it should be quality product, it should be quality method, it should be robust, it should be rugged. That's the final aim. How you do it, you have to defend. So I was just talking, we were having this discussion over our tea break. Are we using quality by design in industry or not? So we were also having the same discussion, and we were saying why we are getting late. So I have coined the term late for it. First reason is it's labor intensive. Timeline is another reason, because we can't continue doing the things for years. We have everything comes with very rigid timelines, like we have to finish everything within 2 months or 3 months, right? We can't have our own timelines. And attitude. Attitude, I will tell you why I am talking about this attitude word. I will give you one very simple example after this, why I am talking about attitude. And this is very common nowadays. And other thing is expensive. Like nothing is free of cost. So this is I'm going to talk about attitude. See, I'm just giving one example. One baby was standing close to gate, and when he was seeing three friends passing through the gate, he used to wink, giving the smile to them. And they were kind of trying to find out who he or she likes. Is it me or someone else? Means out of three, who he likes, that baby. So when I say attitude, you can simply say, go tomorrow you go, day after tomorrow you, and after that you go. Then we'll get to know. 3 days will pass along, right? So in simple 3 steps you can get to know who baby likes. Right? Is it true? Why we put our brain on that? But it's not always true. Sometimes consider one very simple situation. Baby got a hard slap by mother in the morning. And he was very angry and upset. He was not in mood of smile or winking or anything. And his favorite person passed through and he was not even winking or seeing towards him. You may end up in wrong kind of result. Consider second scenario, right? Second day. Baby was very happy, he got chocolate something. He was happy, he was in mood. He was not bothering about like the person who he don't like at all is passing through. He was just smiling. You may have impression that baby likes him. So here design comes into the picture. And one of very old kind of phrase we say is first impression. But it's the time when we have to come out from that first impression. In my opinion, I'm not saying you sorry for that. In my opinion, I cannot judge anyone by interacting someone in 15 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes. I would need my time. I would have my own assessment. I would have my own criteria to put any conclusion about anyone. So it is the same thing. We should not be reaching on to the conclusion by just saying like I will do 1, 2, 3 or just my point, right? That's not that easy. So this example is talking about that only. So when you go, you plan your experiment, 1, 2, 3, go in the pairs, go all 3 together, right? Maybe he likes or one don't like or other. When you all 3 are working together, he will be, his response will be neutral. So finally you have to assess the response. Whom he is doing twice, thrice, right? So if you will see for A, B, C, score is higher for it's 40. So you should be dependent on planned outcome, not random outcome. This also talks about confounding, etc. This is the terminology which we use in experimental domain, right? Interaction, effect of being 2 factors together, etc. But just simple message, don't jump on the conclusion based on random assessments. So this is general flow. I will not talk much about it. ATP discusses my DOE, control strategy, etc. These are just parameters. You can select what you need to do, but it based on what kind of CQA you are targeting. You can see in table identification, we are having different criteria. Impurity profiling, we are having different criteria. And when you will read about these validation parameter, etc., you would get to know what is important, what is not important, right? If you are traveling by road, you need not to talk about flight or boat, right? So it's just I can talk about these different aspects of SPLC development during hands-on experience, how they are important and how one parameter can have an effect. So multiple things I have added, but we should not be putting much attention to this. Now, if I'm talking about HPLC, so there are two things which are very important. Sometimes you can simply say it's going to be critical, right? When we were talking about critical quality attribute. So you have seen in the morning slide that we were talking about assay. It's kind of always critical because we are talking about efficacy. Similarly, in analytical method development, certain things like stationary phase column, it's always critical. When you are talking about ordering modifier like acetonitrile and methanol, if you change them, your pattern will change. So if you will talk means we will go by general DOE philosophy, they will say first put everything together, perform screening experiment and try to find out what is critical and work around that. But that's not really necessary. Certain things you can simply say by saying that or based on your experience means these are your critical things. You don't need any kind of additional experiment to prove that they are critical. So that's why we have categorized the parameter in two categories, primary and secondary. Primary don't need any kind of screening experiment using different factorial or fractional factorial design. You can simply go ahead with that. But when you are talking about secondary, you can have dozens of parameters to evaluate. When we were in the morning, we were talking about particle size and compaction, etc. Right? Everything may not be necessary. Certain things you can simply rule out. And to rule out them, you may not need very extensive design or efforts. For those things, you can use, there are many statistical design which saves your time and can give you the required information. Most important thing, you should be knowing what you need, right? So, as I mentioned earlier, first we should be knowing what not to do. Then second should be thinking what we should be doing. So optimum efforts are always. So I will not talk much about these things. Just I am skipping them. So this is about different statistical design which one should be prepared for different activities. So these are a few articles. So as I mentioned, I started learning QBD more than a decade ago, or it's close to 15-16 years. And when I started, so I started with one review article in Pharma Times. And there, as I mentioned, like I was using that time the same terminology. Yes, we use for the product development, but with ICSQ 14 now it is different, right? So yes, we were talking about can we use it for different chemical synthesis, etc. Yes. So you can see different examples here. When I was about to learn something, I started doing research project on that. My first attempt was, what is the biggest target I can achieve, right? Or there is a saying like, eat the frog first. So if you do your worst thing first, then other things will be very easy for you. So means when I was switching from one technique to other technique, you will see here example, I started from general QBD, then LC, and then GC, and then SFC. And you won't believe that for SFC, one of my managers came to me and he mentioned that We got a research article in white and we have to make it within 2 months. Can you believe we are not talking about review article? And Journal of Chromatography, very high impact journal. Then he reached out to his manager what we should be doing, and he told, go to Motion if you want paper in the 2 months. So then we planned the experiment, and SFC was new for me. I was not knowing anything about SFC. So that was the best time for me to learn SFC, everything about SFC within 2 months. So when you start from your basics and go deeper and deeper, then you will learn how to design the things. So don't think about quality, always think about designing the things. Other slides are simply talking, this is one of the example from one of my paper. I'm not going to talk much about it. So this is a simple takeaway from QBD. We talk about the systematic approach. Yes, everything should be systematic, not only your product development, right? People say you also should be systematic. You can't keep your room messy. You should be putting each and everything on its own dedicated place, right? So just don't kind of think much about the terminology. Just how you can do the things simply. As I explained, CQA, CPAs, whatever it is, everything is there. Everything was there in the USP, in the different ICS guidelines, just giving different naming to same term, assay identity purity. Okay, so that's all from my side, and if you are having any question to me, please feel free. No question? Then thanks everyone.